All right, good morning. Check it out, we got another one. So, new project, new list of issues and things to tackle is our fancy new F150 Supercab. So she's a 78 model, Supercab 351 modified under the hood. Obviously it's the long bed, so she's big. It barely fits in the driveway with another car in front. But so we've already started tinkering on it, and it's a little bit out of order, out of sequence with this video. You'll see I got this nice fancy new painted stripe down the middle, which I did the other day, but didn't record an intro for this truck yet because I was excited. I just jumped right in. But I'm going to walk you around and show you this thing and let you soak in the new project we're working on. So like I said, she's a 78 model year. Let's get you under here. 351M. It does have what looks to be a newer carb, but still what I'm pretty certain is a 2-barrel on it. Somebody's done the brake master, painted it blue, which is fancy. Brakes are not working well right now. They work actually, but the pedal doesn't return. So either the master cylinder or the booster is bad and not allowing that pedal to come back out. So I've got a new booster and brake master that's going to go on this thing, and I should start juicing those up now because those look pretty rough. But otherwise pretty clean under here, pretty original. It's still using the old ignition box, so we might do an HEI swap on this one here coming up soon. But it actually does run and drive decent. Carb definitely needs to be tuned, but otherwise in pretty decent shape. I haven't done anything with it yet under the hood, but we'll dive into that once we tackle some other things. New plugs, wires, we'll do a basic tune-up on it, check the timing, all that good stuff. It does have a replacement radiator. That is not the original. Doesn't seem to overheat. I ran it for a while the other day, and it did pretty well. So under the hood, honestly, it's decent, but it just needs a little bit of love. It does need some wiring. You can see they've got all kinds of weird cobbled together Romex with wire nuts. A lot of that is for accessories that aren't even on here anymore, so we're going to yank most of that out. One thing that is a little concerning is there's a new valve cover gasket on this side, but not on this side. So someone's been in just one side of this engine for some reason. No PCV in the back there either. So somebody's been toying around, but it runs pretty good. So I think maybe it was just leaking. Somebody tried to change it, didn't do for whatever reason. The other one beats me. But anywho, that's under the hood. Passenger side, more of the same. Somebody has primed the entire truck to try and keep the rust at bay, and it's actually in pretty decent shape. There's some surface rust and pitting here, not a huge deal. There is some holes in here. This metal's pretty eaten up. Cab corner as well, the typical stuff. That's what we're going to be working on here shortly, is opening this up, fiberglass filling it, and then body filler. Then we're going to paint this thing. We're going to give it a super cheap spray paint job, but it'll look way better than it does now.
Oops, sorry folks.
Go through here and remove all this silicone that someone has gobbed underneath the drip rail. Looks like they were just trying to fill in the spots and the holes, but really all that did was trap the moisture in and made it worse. So this whole upper area needs to be cut, ground down, and cleaned out. Look at the pinholes in the cab corner here. That's the worst spot, and it's starting to get into the cab. Going around to the back, the tailgate's seen some better days. It's got some holes up in the top here, but not too terrible, and I think that's still salvageable. So we'll remove that trim piece and try and fill all that in as well. Some small spots on the top of the bed. Surprisingly, inside of the bed in good shape. On this side, just that lower rocker area. Everything else looks pretty good. There is a bang in that fender, but we'll get that pulled out later. That cab corner, more of the same. This one's actually worse. We're going to cut most of that out to try and get that patched in and get this thing watertight again. Overall, pretty solid truck. Let's take a look at the inside of this bad boy. So, best seat cover in the world, the saddle blanket. This one's a little worse for wear. You know you're sitting in something a lot when you're wearing through even your seat cover in the same spot. But that is the party piece. The cow print and plaid combo is a special feature on the XLT Ranger. The guy redid it. He actually did a good job, and I'm going to leave that. I kind of like it. Seats in the back are in good shape. Don't look like they've had seen a whole lot of use. It's even got the original carpet in it. You can see where someone had a subwoofer set up or something back there. That's some of that, hobbled together wiring we're going to get rid of. Carpet's got some stains, but it's actually in decent shape and intact. I dig the old floor mats. Those are cool. It's got the fake wood grain trim on the dash and on the steering wheel. Gauge cluster's in pretty good shape. Got a fancy stereo, does not work. That's coming out and getting replaced. Dash pad's got some cracks, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. We could probably salvage that. I do like the wood grain and the XLT Ranger badge on the glove box there. But that headliner, man, he's got it looking sharp. It's missing the sun visors, but those are actually here. They're down inside the cab. You can see where the rust is getting in from those cab corners like I was talking about, or the roof corners rather. But still pretty solid, pretty clean. We got to go through. He gave me new door cards for both sides. They're the LMC cheaper ones, but still nice bonus. Got some extra goodies in the boxes down there. He's got some speakers. He actually put electronic keyless door locks in this thing. They're not wired in. There's a full wiring harness down there, but I don't think we're going to need it. I think if we just get rid of all the redneck wiring that's in this thing and kind of clean it up, the existing wiring looks fine. It's kind of a mess right now. A lot of that was from the stereo that someone had jumbled in there, and those gauges, which none of which are actually hooked up. They ran wires and like pre-fed everything, but nothing's actually hooked up. So it's just a mess. We gotta get rid of all that and start over from square one. But luckily, it doesn't look like a lot of the factory wiring has been cut into. It definitely needs some sprucing and cleaning up, but it's a good solid starting platform. Look at the wear on the door. You've been putting some really good seat time in if your elbow is wearing a patch like that. Odometer reads 78,000, but looking at the pedal wear, I think there's too much wearing on this thing to only be 78,000. It's probably more like 178,000, but still pretty well cared for truck for a lot of its life, I think. It does have that big rubber mat in the bed underneath it, actually in pretty good shape, but we're going to take that out, clean it up, and probably bed liner the inside, and that mat is going to go into the red F100 over there because that one needs some help. It's got a bunch of holes in it. Pretty clean, well used, but clean little truck. This in memory of sticker is for the original owner's daughter. Story I heard was she died in a car accident, and he put that on there. So we're going to keep it and clean this truck up so it's a little bit of a better memoriam. All right, let's get out the flap disc, the cutoff wheels, and start hacking on this roof. We did our sanding, and then I started doing some exploratory surgery here. I started carving out all this silicone, and oh boy, you can fit your whole hand in some of these spots. It was in top of the drip rail too. Actually not as bad on top on this side, but this side was all eaten away on both sides. So I actually just, the drip rail ran all the way to here. See, it ran down like this, which seems kind of pointless anyway. So I cut it off here and shaved all this back, and we'll just fill this all in. I'm gonna have to just do this the wrong way in here and just pack this full of filler, because there is no way I'm gonna be able to structurally weld and fix all this proper. Really, this whole roof probably needs to be cut off and, and addressed, but we're not doing that. So we're gonna leave the drip rail because a little bit of rusty metal is better than no metal. We're gonna do our poly filler up here, and then we're gonna do our just regular, we'll do some fiberglass and body filler there. I got the cab corner cut out over here, or the roof corner, I guess. And then did the same on the other side. Over here, cut it back until it was good metal. Open all this up. I also cut the lips of these drip rails, came around the front, which is the main problem with these. So I cut it flush with the gap on the door on both sides, and we'll bevel and smooth that out and make it look pretty later. But I didn't want to leave it because then I wouldn't be able to get behind it to smooth and sand the filler. So we got that all opened up, got that exposed and ready. I found a bunch of Swiss cheese right here in the roof that we opened up as we started sanding. There's a big chunk blown out right here that we're gonna have to fill. There's some spots through in the drip rail back in here, you can see. So this side, worse up top, the other side worse underneath. This one's got some holes still through underneath here as well. All the way down the side, it's pretty Swiss cheesed. But the upper on this drip rail is actually in good shape here. So even though it won't match, I'm not gonna cut it off this side just because it doesn't need it. And no one's gonna notice except for you guys that I've just told. So we're gonna leave that side be. Now we need to do an actual, we did the rough sand with heavy grit just to smooth everything out and get it opened up. Now we need to do a little bit more sanding and get everything smoothed out, get into that rust a little bit more. Then we'll prep all, then we'll do some filler. I got some of this stuff at Ace. Osfo. It's basically a rust converter that you can rub on to the bare metal and have it turn it into, from iron oxide to, what is it, iron sulfate, I guess. It's got phosphoric acid in it. I rubbed a bunch of that on after I sanded, and it is working. You can see that rust color is already turning black, and I went ahead and did that in all the real nasty spots, and as it's drying it should change it. I wanted to test a spot that didn't already have that black primer, so I also did the top of the tailgate here. So we'll check on it, keep an eye, and see if that actually does what it's supposed to do. But in the meantime, we're just going to let this cook. It's got to dry before I can do my filler. And then once the filler is in, then we can prime this thing probably tomorrow. Alright, so I took the compressor, blew everything off, cleaned it up a little bit. I'm going to take my hammer and my fancy bodywork tool that's just the biggest tap that I have. And I just want to make sure all of these areas that are kind of up from the rust are back down. So we're just going to tap them just like that. Good. So we just want those to not be the high parts. That way when we go to sand everything down, it doesn't come sticking back through. Everything else looks pretty good. Whew, she's rough. But you get the idea. We'll go around everywhere and do that. All right, so we're getting ready to start patching our holes. And since we're going to do it the wrong way, I figured might as well do the wrong way as good as possible. Instead of just using regular Bondo, I actually tried to find a different brand, but no one around here carries anything other than this. But it's not regular Bondo body filler. This is short strand fiberglass filler, so it's reinforced. The regular Bondo looks more like this. This is the stuff you're used to seeing that's just kind of the cream colored deal, yellow stuff. This we'll use on top of some areas to level out, build up, sand down. But this is what we're going to use to actually fill the holes. It's going to keep it a lot stronger, give us a little bit more life, hopefully, out of what we're doing. I also got fiberglass matting to shove into those big spots we cut out in the roof. So we'll put some gloves on because I don't want to be itchy all afternoon. And then we're going to cut this up, shove it in those holes. And then we're going to take this stuff and skim over it, do it decently thick as we can without it looking totally ridiculous. And then we'll let that tack up. Then we'll come back, sand it down, kind of smooth it out. And then we can go over it with this body filler just to get it nice and smooth if we need to. Then we're going to go ahead and prime it everywhere. I actually have self-etching primer that I'll use on it first. I've got some filler primer. We've got to build up some spots, and just some regular rust inhibiting primer to spray on the roof once everything's done. And then this is the color we chose to go on top of the roof, the whole top and bottom of the car. I think that's pretty close to the factory color. So Spa Blue is the name of the color. So let's go ahead and get some gloves on, mix this stuff up, cut this stuff, shove it in there, and give it a whirl. All right, so I do have a mask on now, so it might be a little tough to hear me, but I'm getting ready to work on the fiberglass, and I don't really want to be breathing in or touching on this fiberglass. So we're just going to cut little strips, size them up, and just sort of shove them in here. I'm just going to tuck it in like this. Boom. That'll work there. Just gonna kind of ball some up, and wow, that is a monstrous cavity in there. And with the headliner in, I can't actually get to it from inside the truck either. Maybe we can get a big enough piece in there to hold purchase on it. Let's just take this whole wad here. See if we can get this in there. Get a good skim coat on, and then we can smash it really in there. Don't really need a whole lot more of that. Maybe a little piece in here. Yep. That. Got to run a piece of tape underneath to kind of make a ledge and hold that in. Do the same right here. The rest of this I think we can just fill. I really don't want to use body filler in here. I wanted to use that polyurethane, but these holes are too big, I think. I'm going to put a little bit of filler. We'll sand it down. We'll do the poly on top, I guess. Still. That'll be the plan anyway. Yeah. Let's check the other side. Whee! Yeah, you can see the hole we had to cut in this thing. This stuff just gets kind of everywhere. That'll be good. Boom. So we've got this junk thrift store serving tray thing that we're going to use as our mixing board. There's our hardener. No instructions. Don't need them. Little of this, little of that, you know. You need something to scoop it out with. This shop pencil ought to do. I don't want to mix too much of this up at the same time. We can always make more. Smells nice. Just stir it up real good, make sure it's mixed. You can actually see the fiberglass strand in it, and the light catches it, right? So we're going to try not to be touching on this stuff neither. But I also don't want to wear gloves because I feel just way less dexterous with them. You know what I mean? It's just, it makes everything harder to work. But let's just goop and gob about that much, I guess. We're going to go with the smallest of the scrapers for now. Bought a whole pack because mine are all beat up from using them for not at their intended purposes. We're going to just... No idea if that's the right amount. I guess we'll start mixing it up and see. Bigger board probably would have been good, or just making less of it at the same time. But hey, we're learning and doing, you know? We're already doing more than we could be, so. Is it crazy that it looks like it's shrinking? Seems like less the more I work it. That seems good consistency. All right. Now, I don't know how long we have before this stuff really starts to set off. So we're going to go ahead and make our way to the truck and get ready for application. Start on this side because it doesn't really matter which side. I'm not going to start with the corner. I don't want to get too brave too fast. We're going to move back a little actually and do these spots first. I do know that you want to work this in the same direction the whole time. We're going to go at our bad spot here. Boy. So some of these holes are pretty big. So this has not been going super smooth, especially on this part where I have to get under the channel here. Mixing up a little bit more right now to get where the camera's on. This stuff sets off pretty fast mostly because I think it's just so freaking hot out, and we're in the direct sun, which is probably not ideal for installation of this stuff. And I'm probably not using the right amount of hardener because I'm totally guessing. I keep using less and less, but it still seems like it sets off just as fast. I don't know, but I'm going to try using the stick that I was mixing the stuff up with as my applicator for underneath here, because I can't really get anything up under here good. Everything's just too big and too bulky. We're going to try and just do this, just get a nice good skim of it. Oh, goodness. Sanding's gonna suck.
But that's for tomorrow me to worry about. Today me hates tomorrow me.
Okay, that's kind of going. Let's go mix up some more. Just keep going. hope that rain doesn't last long. Go ahead and bring all the tools in again. All right, let's see how we did. So we got our whole can of short strand fiberglass on here. That actually looks pretty good. I probably should have came back a little farther on the drip rail, but whatever. That looks pretty decent. Once we sand, this looks like total crap where we just smashed it under here, but I went heavy and we can always grind and channel that out if we want. Cut that drip rail off. We filled that whole seam. We'll sand that down. I think that'll actually look okay. Got our patches that we did down here. We'll sand this down smooth. That should take care of those big holes. I'm worried about this hole right here. It's pretty, there's a lot of little pits in it right there. And when I sand it down, I'm worried it'll open it back up. We might have to do some more. I did 2 coats, but might have to add some more anyway. Over here looks pretty good. This is nice and even along here. Filled all those in real good. Sanded down, that'll look great. Under the channel, we actually did better over here. Got that all filled in. Got all the top here. Looks pretty good. This one, which I had to cut out even more of, looks pretty good. It looks awful now, but once we sand it, that'll look nice. I think that actually came out pretty good. So we had some good progress today. Roof was completely sanded, cleaned, prepped, and we did the fiberglass work. So now we're running out of time. Tomorrow we're going to sand everything down and hopefully get our first couple coats of primer on the hood. We'll get our first couple coats of primer on the roof. I'll say the fiberglass is a lot harder to work than regular body filler, but everything I've read, it should hold up a lot better for the stuff that we just did with it for the size of those holes. So worth the effort, I think so. We've got it all in there. The hard part, I hope, is done. And now it's just going to be sanding it down, making it look decent, making it look as good as we want, and then getting her painted up. I'm going to move her off into the side yard here. Let all this stuff cure. And I think sanding, prepping, repainting, all that's going to come in part 2, coming soon.